This is the most iconic guitar to hit the auction block since Gilmour's Black Strat. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Julien's auction is having a played, worn, and torn rock and roll iconic guitars auction coming up on 11/16. So let's see what we can buy. And we're going to start with Eric Clapton's The Fool SG. This has always been one of those really cool guitars. Even though I did not grow up in this era, it just has such a psychedelic paint job to it, and it's got a cool name, The Fool, after the people who did the paint job on this 1964 SG, that I really want to see a Gibson custom shop recreation of. We've documented the sister guitar of this one, the Rocky Stratocaster, which has a similar psychedelic theme, except for The Fool has always seemed a little bit more artistic, while still being colorful, like we've got this little angel person over here. We've got a nice country landscape. And then we flip it over to the back and we've got all kinds of psychedelic stuff going on. I've always really liked this kind of center of the Earth's core being sliced in half type thing going on there. This entire thing was painted, unlike Rocky. And this is also the guitar that gave Clapton his very famous woman tone. You know, you select your neck pickup, you roll off your tone, and you get that very iconic sound. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the history, like every single nitty-gritty detail, they have a full write-up. When I say full write-up, I mean full write-up about this entire thing, so you can just read about it on their website. But they're estimating it to fetch between $1 and $2 million, with an opening bid of $250,000. So naturally, I start to think, who should buy this guitar? First guy that pops in my head is Jim Irsay, the current owner of the Indianapolis Colts. He has his own touring museum. He's got all the really fancy guitars like that Black Strat that we had just talked about, and pretty much anything else you could want to see from famous people that have owned and played them. He's not necessarily after the models in history, he's after the ones that the stars used. He's got a fantastic collection, and he's known for buying these things. However, I really think he's got some stiff competition this time, because I could see Cesar and Mark Agnesi pulling together and saying, hey, we need to buy this for the custom shop so they can do all their 3D scans, they don't have to attribute it to any type of artist, and they can give it the Greeny treatment. Have the 50K collector's edition example, then take it down to a 20K custom shop, then offer an Epiphone variation, or maybe even a Gibson USA. That's kind of what Fender did with the Rocky Stratocasters, and I could see this being a big seller for them. Personally, I think this is a low estimate. I think it'll easily be at least $5 million. Only time will tell on that. But let's say they do 50,000 times 50 collector's editions. That's $2.5 million right there. They could probably even bump that particular release up to 75,000 because they're probably going to have to pay an artist to do all of them and still say 50. I mean, it would basically be like getting the guitar for free after they do everything. Now, of course, there's some costs within that, so maybe they could make 100 of them. Let's take them down to 50 and do 100, and there we go. There's the $5 million. So it really just depends how crazy this goes, but I could see that being a easy business decision for Gibson to do. And then they have the thing in their vault. They could sell it within their vintage collection later on, or just keep it as a bragging piece within their vault at the Gibson garage. So that's why I think Jim has stiff competition here, and that's why we might see the prices go crazy. Or it could just be somebody completely else getting into the fray. I can say without a doubt, I do not have the budget to go into this, but who knows, maybe somebody that buys it will be like, hey, let's lend it to Trogly for a review. Not holding out hope on that, but wouldn't that be cool? But for all of us mere mortals, you can get pretty close with other people's replicas. It's not like they haven't been made out of other Gibson guitars. Sometimes they're cheap, like $2,500. Sometimes they're expensive, like 10 grand. But I would love to see this get a custom shop collector's edition release, because that is an iconic piece of Gibson history, even if it won't end up having Gibson on the headstock. But next up, we've got a Kurt Cobain stage-played Skystang. So he played this one on stage at a concert, so obviously you've got the video footage behind it. People love Kurt Cobain and his memorabilia, and especially the guitars that he's played. So this one is also estimated to be between $1 and $2 million. It's nowhere near as crazy. Looks like we got a humbucker in the bridge pickup, no psychedelic paint jobs. But it just kind of depends, you know, where you came from. Are you into the 90s scene? Are you more into the 50s, 60s, etc.? Classic rock years? There's buyers for every era. But I will say that is a beautiful blue finish, and I love that red pickguard. You got your Schaller strap locks on it. And it really does not seem to be that heavily worn. It's not like he smashed it on stage or anything, unlike some of these other ones that we'll be looking at here in a minute, but we've got some finish checking. And it looks like a neck pocket crack. And he definitely had to move that strap button around a couple of times. But I like how plain that headstock is, that's cool. I was not seeing that wrong. It is a made in Japan Fender. And okay, that's not just a neck pocket crack, that's a full-on repair. So it adds to the history of it. So without Kurt's association with it, this is probably like a $800 guitar or something. So we'll have to see where that one goes. Personally, I was more excited to see this, an Albert King stage-played Lucy. So this is one of those Gibson-esque guitars that I've wanted to review because I just love the history on these models. Dan Erlewine made them, and he still makes them with his partner. I've been tempted to order one of those because apparently he still has the wood stock that he made the original Lucy out of. But it's a nice walnut 58 style Flying V. This one has Albert King's name on our fretboard, as well as a nice fancy headstock. And a cool custom coffin case, but you know what? This one's more of like a cherry color. It looks like it has a figured maple top that's like carved. That is interesting. The one I'm more familiar with looks like this. I've just always loved all walnut guitars. And in my opinion, Dan is a national treasure. Whether you like Stu Mac as a business or not, I could listen to his stories all day. He knows what he's talking about. This one has me really excited. So this is Slash's old 1995 Gibson Corvette. So you guys know me with the snake bit. I have kind of a troubled history with it, but there's a really cool photo of Slash with a collection of guitars. Well, the internet has no shortage of that. This is the one I'm talking about. It has the snake pit prototype, the only one that's rotated this way before they made the production ones over here. And then you've got his like initial ones before his signatures came out. Then he's got this weird custom shop 12 string. I've never actually noticed that there before because in my opinion, this Corvette one steals the show. So whether that's the exact one in this photo or not, I guess it doesn't really matter because these Corvette Les Pauls in the black and red design do not show up too often. So it's estimated between 10 and 20,000. And usually when you see these things show up, they tend to fetch anywhere between 8 and 12, so I don't think they're too far off there. This is one I honestly would not mind owning for my collection, and honestly, I'm seeing some details on this that I've never really noticed before, so maybe I'll keep quiet about this one just in case I want to put a bid in. I mean, I've already got the double cut Corvette and documented that, so why not get the true Les Paul? But oof! Gig bag? What's up with that? Not even a good gig bag, but here we go. We've got a picture of Slash with it. So as far as provenance goes, apparently Slash sold this off back in 2011. So it's not Slash selling it this time, it's kind of a secondhand collectible. Not quite as cool, but we'll see how it goes. I always love seeing Frank Zappa modified guitars. He's just like Les Paul sometimes. Well, this one is called Mothers of Invention, stage played and studio played Gibson ES5 Switchmaster. So a Switchmaster usually looks like this. You've got your master switch and you've got your cow udders down here. This one's a little bit more extreme because we still got our 6 knobs, except for we added 2 more, and then we've got some mini toggles and like a push button, and then some stuff going up on here, and some new humbuckers being thrown in here. I mean, that's just got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but it still looks fancy. And working on these things is naturally not easy, so we've got a back access control plate now, but beautifully aged headstock. And holy Toledo, that's a flight case. Nothing's gonna happen to that. And it's nice enough to even have a compartment. Oh, and regular knobs in case you want to throw them on there. That one's estimated to sell between 20 and 30K. This next thing's a little bit funny. It's a Pete Townshend smashed and signed 1965 Fender Stratocaster guitar piece. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, it's just the pick guard out of one of the guitars. They threw everything else away, but then, no, there's still the body attached to it. You just gotta flip it to the backside to see most of it. That's just hilarious. Like, he's known for smashing these things. So to have a chunk of a Stratocaster with like the original pickups and some other good stuff, I feel like that's a cool little piece for someone's collection here. Although it's definitely not cheap. And you can have a rock and roll auction without selling a burst. This is a true 59, estimated to sell between 3 and 500,000. As far as bursts go, it's got a good top, but nothing that I think collectors will necessarily fight over. Most of them are like this. There's just a few beauty ones that got shared around everywhere, so that's what everybody wants. Depending on the provenance and history on it, I mean, it looks rather clean, so maybe somebody who wants to buy one of these strictly because it's in such good condition, maybe they'll pay a premium, but they might have this a little bit overestimated. I mean, it looks like we got a little touch up on the headstock, but yeah, this is almost scary clean condition. But hey, that's kind of a cool serial number, 90335, because, you know, ES335 is a real model within Gibson's territory. Very easy to remember that one. Oh no, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. I think it's supposed to be 365, still 365 days in the year, that works. But you know, sometimes if you squint your eye a different way, you can see the 3 outline. Well, hey, there we go. Now it's starting to look good. But our description verifies 90365. The guitar is in pristine, all-original collector's grade condition, accompanied by original Gibson strings and hang tags, including the Mr. Dealer tag, and everything else. Now that they're verifying all that, I would want someone like Eric Ernest to check this thing out just to make sure it's not a nice refinished example, but I mean, nothing necessarily stands out to me, but this is not my specialty. A Burst is one of those guitars where I really just don't care about the condition. In fact, I'd probably rather have one that is a little bit more worn, that way I'm not scared to play it. But we also have a 54 Fender Strat, estimated between 1 and 200K. Looks to be in pretty good shape, minus some wear on our fretboard. Has kind of an interesting case to it. There's a Martin D45. I just recently learned about D45s. So to put it into Gibson territory, think Les Paul Custom of the acoustic Martin world. This is the one that they base all their really cool limited editions off of. They're extra fancy with their abalone purfling around the edges and around the rosette. They've got your really fancy headstock. You've got your hexagonal inlays that kind of get flattened out throughout it. So they do a whole bunch of limited editions of these things. Even a brand new one's like 13,000, but this one is from 69, so obviously a little bit more. We've got a Badfinger Pete Ham studio played Wish You Were Here Ovation Deacon. Takes me back to the Gilmore auction. I feel like these are guitars you just had to be there to fully appreciate, and I just wasn't. But you know what? At the same time, it reminds me of those weird headless guitars of today that are kind of a mashup of a Telecaster and a headless. Yeah, the Tosinabasi Loranda Space T. So they're probably pretty ergonomic. And this one has a little bit of history to it. Check this out, a Rick Nielsen owned and played 82 Gibson Moderne. This is one of those ones I think they might be high on the estimate too. Because it's an E serial number, so that's really late in the series. Collectors don't necessarily go after the later numbers. They prefer the earlier productions. But the condition actually does seem to be pretty good. And, you know, Rick Nielsen is known for collecting strange and weird, wacky guitars. So it kind of makes sense that you could buy one of his ex-Modernes. Oh, and that's fun. We've got a picture of him here, pointing to our serial number. That's always helpful. But I would assume somewhere between maybe 8 and 12, and I think that's being pretty fair. Check this out, Bee Gees Maurice Gibb. Stage played Saturday Night Fever Rickenbacker. We've got the photo to kind of back up those claims, and obviously our signatures. I just kind of like the whole Mapleglo finish. That actually looks pretty nice. And gotta love the backers with the lacquered fretboards. Then a Bono played 360 Tour Gretsch Irish Falcon. This one starts at $20,000 and goes up from there. Seems to be pretty clean. We've got a Def Leppard Steve Clarke played Bringing on the Heartbreak Ovation acoustic. That's one of those plastic back guitars, but hey, that's a multi-piece neck. That's cool. And Steve Clarke was a fantastic guitarist. But maybe you're more into the crew. We've got a Mick Mars-owned Jackson electric guitar. I mean, for a Jackson, that's a really nice top. Signed back in 2001. String through. Nice sculpted heel design with a belly cut. Can't go wrong there. But check this out. How would you like to own Kirk Hammett's owned and studio played Fender Telecaster? Telecaster's not the first thing that comes to my head, but I could definitely see him playing around with one. It's a nice candy apple red color. I always think about ESP guitars with him, all of his monster-themed instruments, and then of course Greeny, now that he has it as part of his soul. But oh sweet, he used it on Saint Anger, my favorite Metallica album, and Death Magnetic. If only it was more of a honey amber color. You could have called it Sweet Amber. And then we've also got a Bon Jovi guitar, Richie Sambora signed. That's a really attractive color on a Stratocaster pairing with that flame maple neck. And hey, that one definitely has some stage time. And hey, you don't see gold hardware too often on a Strat. And you've got your signatures over here. But here's an Eddie played guitar. Not his usual one, it's a Charvel. It's got a signature, some picks on it, all the usual stuff. And lastly, a Michael Anthony stage played Van Halen bass, which is a Music Man Stingray. I actually had somebody do a forwarding service on a Stingray bass. Are you guys interested in watching a Stingray review? It was actually one of the really nice limited edition ones. It was like nearly $4,000. I mean, while it's here, I figure we might, but if there's no interest, maybe we'll move on. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.